Okay, so we are going to continue in Unravel Me by Taherah Mafi. This is chapter 28. What? Kenji has gone limp. His voice is a horrified rasp. Who? How? Winston and, Winston and Brendan were patrolling topside tonight. Castle shakes its head. I don't know what happened. They must have been ambushed. They were too far out of range, and the security footage only shows us that Emery and Ian noticed a disturbance and tried to investigate. We don't see anything in the tapes after that. Emery and Ian, he says, never came back either. Kenji is about Kenji is back in his chair again, his face in his hands. He looks up with a sudden burst of hope. But Winston and Brendan, maybe they can find a way out, right? They could do something. They have enough power between the two of them to figure something out. Castle offers Kenji a sympathetic smile. I don't know where he's taken them or how they're being treated. If he's beaten them or if he's already... He hesitates. If he's already tortured them, shot them, if they're bleeding to death, they certainly won't be able to fight back, and even if the two of them could save themselves, he says after a moment, they wouldn't leave the others behind. Kenji presses his fists into his thighs. So, he wants to talk. It's the first time Adam has said a word. Castle nods. Lily found this package where they'd disappeared. He tosses us a small knapsack, and we take turns rummaging through it. It contains only Winston's broken glasses and Brendan's radio, smeared in blood. I have to grip my hands to keep them from shaking. I was just getting to know these guys. I'd only just met Emery and Ian. I was just learning to build new friendships, to feel comfortable with the people of Omega Point. I just had breakfast with Brendan and Winston. I glanced at the clock on Castle's wall. It's 3:31 a.m. I last saw them about 20 hours ago. Brendan's birthday was last week. Winston knew, I hear myself say out loud. He knew something was wrong. He knew there was something weird about all those soldiers everywhere. I know, Castle says, shaking his head. I've been reading and rereading all of his reports. He pinches the bridge of his nose with his thumb and index finger, closes his eyes. I'd only just begun to piece it all together, but it was too late. I was too late. What do you think they were planning? Kenji asks. Do you have a theory? Castle sighs, drops his hands from his face. Well, now we know why Warner was out with the soldiers every night, how he was able to leave the base for as long as he did for so many days. His father, Kenji says. Castle nods. Yes, it's my opinion that the Supreme sent Warner out himself, that he wanted Warner to begin hunting us more aggressively. He's always known about us. Castle says to me. He's never been a stupid man, the Supreme. He's always believed the rumors about us, always known that we were out here, but we've never been a threat to him before. Not until now, he says. Because now that the civilians are talking about us, it's upsetting the balance of power. The people are re-energized, looking for hope in our resistance, and that's not something the re-establishment can afford right now. Anyway, he goes on, I think it's clear that they couldn't find the entrance to Omega and settled for taking hostages, hoping to provoke us to come out on our own. Castle retrieves a piece of paper from his pile, holds it up. It's a note. But there are conditions, he says. The Supreme has given us very specific directions on how next to proceed. And? Kenji is rigid with intensity. The three of you will go. Alone. Holy crap. What? Adam gapes at Castle, astonished. Why us? He hasn't asked to see me, Castle says. I'm not the one he's interested in. And you're just going to agree to that? Adam asks. You're just going to throw us at him? Castle leans forward. Of course not. You have a plan, I ask. The Supreme wants to meet with you at exactly 12 p.m. tomorrow. Well, today, technically, at a specific location on unregulated turf. The details are in the note. He takes a deep breath. And even though I know this is exactly what he wants, I think we should all be ready to go. We should move together. This is, after all, what we've been training for. I've no doubt he has bad intentions, and I highly doubt he's inviting you to chat over a cup of tea. So I think we should be ready to defend against an offensive attack. I imagine his own men will be armed and ready to fight, and I'm fully prepared to lead mine into battle. So we're the bait? Kenji asked, his eyebrows pulled together. We don't even get to fight. We're just the distraction? Kenji, this is bullshit, Adam says, and I'm surprised to see such emotion for him. There has to be another way. We shouldn't be playing by his rules. We should be using this opportunity to ambush them or, I don't know, create a diversion or a distraction so we can attack offensively. I mean, hell, doesn't anyone burst into flames or something? Don't we have anyone who can do something crazy enough to throw everything off, to give us an advantage? Castle turns to stare at me. Adam looks like he might punch Castle in the face. You are out of your mind. Then no, he says. No, we don't have anyone else that can do something so earth-shattering. You think that's funny? Adam snaps. I'm afraid I'm not trying to be funny, Mr. Kent, and your anger is not helping our situation. You may opt out if you like, but I will respectfully request Miss Farrar's assistance in this matter. She is the only one the Supreme actually wants to see. Sending the two of you with her was my idea. What? All three of us are stunned. Why me? I really wish I could tell you, Castle says to me. I wish I knew more. As of right now, I can only do my best to extrapolate from the information I have, and all I've concluded thus far is that Warner has made a glaring error that needs to be set right. Somehow you managed to get caught in the middle. A pause. Warner's father, he says, has asked very specifically for you in exchange for the hostages. He says if you do not arrive at the appointed time, he will kill our men, and I have no reason to doubt his word. Murdering the innocent is something that comes very naturally to him. And you were just going to let her walk into that? Adam knocks over his garbage can as he jumps to his feet. You weren't even going to say anything? You were going to let us assume that she wasn't a target? Are you insane? Castle rubs his forehead, takes a few calming breaths. No, he says, his voice carefully measured. I was not going to let her walk right into anything. What I'm saying is that we will all fight together, but you two will go with Miss Farrar's. The three of you have worked together before, and both you and Kenji have military training. You're more familiar with the rules, the techniques, the strategy they might employ. You would help keep her safe and embody the element of surprise. Your presence could be what gives us an advantage in the situation. If he wants her badly enough, he'll have to find a way to juggle the three of you. Or, I don't know, Kenji says, affecting nonchalance. Maybe he'll just shoot us both in the face and drag Juliet away while we're too busy being dead to stop him. It's okay, I say. I'll do it. I'll go. What? Adam is looking at me, panic forcing his eyes wide. Juliet, no. Yeah, you might want to think about this for a second, Kenji cuts in, sounding a little nervous. You don't have to come if you don't want to, I tell them. But I'll go. Castle smiles, relief written across his features. This is what we're here for, right? I look around. We're supposed to fight back. This is our chance. Castle is beaming, his eyes bright with something that might be pride. We will be with you every step of the way, Miss Farrar's. You can count on it. I nod. And I realize this is probably what I'm meant to do. Maybe this is exactly why I'm here. Maybe I'm just supposed to die. Chapter 29. The morning is a blur. There's so much to do, so much to prepare for, and there are so many people getting ready. But I know that ultimately this is my battle. I have unfinished business to deal with. I know this meeting has nothing to do with the Supreme Commander. He has no reason to care so much about me. I've never even met the man. I should be nothing more than expendable to him. This is Warner's move. It has to be Warner who asked for me. This has something and everything to do with him. It's a smoke signal telling me he still wants me, and he's not yet given up. And I have to face him. I only wonder how he managed to get his father to pull these strings for him. I guess I'll find out soon enough. Someone is calling my name. I stop in place, spin around. James. He runs up to me just outside the dining hall, his hair so blonde, his eyes so blue, just like his older brother's. but I've missed his face in a way that has nothing to do with how much he reminds me of Adam. James is a special kid, a sharp kid, the kind of 10-year-old who is always underestimated, and he's asking me if we can talk. He points to one of the many corridors. I nod, follow him into an empty tunnel. He stops walking and turns away for a moment, stands there looking uncomfortable. I'm stunned he even wants to talk to me. I haven't spoken a single word to him in 3 weeks. He started spending time with the other kids at Omega Point shortly after we arrived, and then things somehow got awkward between us. He stopped smiling when he'd see me, stopped waving hello from across the dining hall. I always imagined he'd heard rumors about me from the other kids and decided he was better off staying away. And now, after everything that's happened with Adam, after our very public display in the tunnel, I'm shocked he wants to say anything to me. His head is still down when he whispers, I was really, really mad at you. And the stitches in my heart begin to pop, one by one. He looks up, looks at me like he's trying to gauge whether or not his opening words have upset me, whether or not I'm going to yell at him for being honest with me. And I don't know what he sees in my face, but it seems to disarm him. He shoves his hands into his pockets, rubs his sneaker in circles on the floor, says, You didn't tell me you killed someone before. I take an unsteady breath and wonder if there will ever be a proper way to respond to a statement like that. I wonder if anyone other than James will ever even say something like that to me. I think not, so I just nod and say, I'm really sorry. I should have told you. Then why didn't you? He shouts, shocking me. Why didn't you tell me? Why did everyone else know except for me? And I'm floored for a moment, floored by the hurt in his voice, the anger in his eyes. I never knew he considered me a friend, and I realize I should have. James hasn't known many people in his life. Adam is his entire world. Kenji and I were two of the only people he'd ever really met before we got to Omega Point. And for an orphan child in his circumstances, it must have meant a lot to have new friends. But I've been so concerned with my own issues that it never occurred to me that James would care so much. I never realized my omission would have seemed like a betrayal to him, that the rumors he heard from the other children must have hurt him just as much as they hurt me. So I decide to sit down, right there in the tunnel. I make room for him to sit down beside me, and I tell him the truth. I didn't want you to hate me. He glares at the floor, says, I don't hate you. No. He picks at his shoelaces, sighs, shakes his head. And I don't like what they were saying about you, he says, quieter now. The other kids, they said you were mean and nasty, and I told them you weren't. I told them you were quiet and nice and that you have nice hair, and they told me I was lying. I swallow hard, punched in the heart. You think I have nice hair? Why did you kill him? James asked me, eyes so open, so ready to be understanding. Was he trying to hurt you? Were you scared? I take a few breaths before I answer. Do you remember? I say to him, feeling unsteady now. What Adam told you about me? About how I can't touch anyone without hurting them? James nods. Well, that's what happened. I touched him, and he died. But why? He asks. Why'd you touch him? Because you wanted him to die? My face feels like cracked china. No, I tell him, shaking my head. I was young, only a couple of years older than you, actually. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I could kill people by touching them. He'd fallen down at the grocery store, and I was just trying to help him get to his feet. A long pause. It was an accident. James is silent for a while. He takes turns looking at me, looking at his shoes. At the knees, he's tucked up against his chest. He's staring at the ground when he finally whispers, I'm sorry I was mad at you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth. I whisper back. He nods, scratches a spot on his nose, looks at me. So can we be friends again? You want to be friends with me? I blink hard against the stinging in my eyes. You're not afraid of me? Are you going to be mean to me? Never. Then why would I be afraid of you? And I laugh, mostly because I don't want to cry. I nod too many times. Yes, I say to him. Let's be friends again. Good, he says, and gets to his feet. Because I don't want to eat lunch with those other kids anymore. I stand up, dust off the back of my suit. Eat with us, I tell him. You can always sit at our table. Okay, he nods, looks away again, tugs on his ear a little. So did you know Adam is really sad all the time? He turns his blue eyes on me. I can't speak at all. Adam says he's sad because of you. James looks at me, like he's waiting for me to deny it. Did you hurt him by accident too? He was in the medical wing, did you know that? He was sick. And I think I'm going to fall apart, right there, but somehow I don't. I can't lie to him. Yes, I tell him. I tell James. I hurt him by accident, but now I stay away from him, so I can't hurt him anymore. Then why is he still so sad, if you're not hurting him anymore? I'm shaking my head, pressing my lips together because I don't want to cry and I don't know what to say, and James seems to understand. He throws his arms around me, right around my waist, hugs me and tells me not to cry because he believes me. He believes I only hurt Adam by accident and the little boy too. And then he says, but be careful today, okay? And kick some ass too. I'm still stunned that it takes me a moment to realize that not only did he use a bad word, he just touched me for the very first time. I try to hold on for as long as I can without making things awkward between us, but I think my heart is still in a puddle somewhere on the floor. And that's when I realize everyone knows. James and I walk into the dining hall together, and I can already tell that the stares are different now. Their faces are full of pride, strength, and acknowledgement when they look at me. No fear, no suspicion. I've officially become one of them. I will fight with them, for them, against the same enemy. I can see what's in their eyes because I'm beginning to remember what it feels like. Hope. It's like a drop of honey, a field of tulips blooming in the springtime. It's fresh rain, a whispered promise, a cloudless sky, the perfect punctuation mark at the end of a sentence, and it's the only thing in the world keeping me afloat. Chapter 30. This isn't how we wanted it to happen, Castle says to me, but these things never usually go according to plan. Adam and Kenji and I are being fitted for battle. We're camped out in one of the larger training rooms with 5 others I've never met before. They're in charge of weapons and armor. It's incredible how every single person at Omega Point has a job. Everyone contributes. Everyone has a task. They all work together. Now, we still don't know yet exactly why or how you can do what you do, Miss Ferrars, but I'm hoping that when the time comes, your energy will present itself. These kinds of high-stress situations are perfect for provoking our abilities. In fact, 78% of Point members reported an initial discovery of their ability while in critical, high-risk circumstances. Yep, I don't say to him. That sounds about right. Castle takes something from one of the women in the room. Aaliyah, I think is her name. And you shouldn't worry about a thing, he says. We'll be right there in case something should happen. I don't point out that I never once said I was worried, not out loud anyway. These are your new gloves, Castle says, handing them to me. Try them on. These new gloves are shorter, softer. They stop precisely at my wrist and fasten with a snap button. They feel thicker, a little heavier, but they fit my fingers perfectly. I curl my hand into a fist, smile a little. These are incredible, I tell him. Didn't you say Winston designed them? Castle's face falls. Yes, he says quietly. He finished them just yesterday. Winston. He was the very first face I saw when I woke up at Omega Point. His crooked nose, his plastic glasses, his sandy blonde hair, and his background in psychology, his need for disgusting coffee. I remember the broken glasses we found in the knapsack. I have no idea what's happened to him. Aaliyah returns with a leather contraption in her hands. It looks like a harness. She asks me to lift my arms and helps me slip into the piece, and I recognize it as a holster. There are thick leather shoulder straps that intersect in the center of my back, and 50 different straps of very thin black leather overlapping around the highest part of my waist, just underneath my chest, like some kind of incomplete bustier. It's like a bra with no cups. Aaliyah has to buckle everything together for me, and I still don't really understand what I'm wearing. I'm waiting for some kind of explanation. Then I see the guns. There was nothing in the note about arriving unarmed, Castle says, as Aaliyah passes him 2 automatic handguns in a shape and size I've come to recognize. I practiced shooting with these just yesterday. I was terrible at it. And I see no reason for you to be without a weapon, Castle is saying. He shows me where the holsters are on either side of my ribcage, teaches me how the guns fit, how to snap the holder into place, where the extra cartridges go. I don't bother to mention that I have no idea how to reload a weapon. Kenji and I never got to that part in our lesson. He was too busy trying to remind me not to use a gun to gesticulate while asking questions. I'm hoping the firearms will be a last resort, Castle says to me. You have enough weapons in your personal arsenal. You shouldn't need to shoot anyone. And just in case you find yourself using your gift to destroy something, I suggest you wear these. He holds up a set of what look like elaborate variations on brass knuckles. Aaliyah designed these for you. I look from her to Castle to the foreign objects in his hand. He's beaming. I thank Aaliyah for taking the time to create something for me, and she stammers out an incoherent response, blushing like she can't believe I'm talking to her. I'm baffled. I take the pieces from Castle and inspect them. The underside is made up of four concentric circles welded together, big enough in diameter to fit like a set of rings, snug over my gloves. I slip my fingers through the holes and turn my hand over to inspect the upper part. It's like a mini shield, a million pieces of gunmetal that cover my knuckles, my fingers, the entire back of my hand. I can curl my fist, and the metal moves with the motion of my joints. It's not nearly as heavy as it looks. I slip the other piece on, curl my fingers, reach for the guns now strapped to my body. Easy. I can do this. Do you like it? Castle asks. I'd never seen him smile so wide before. I love it, I tell him. Everything is perfect. Thank you. Very good. I'm so pleased. Now, he says, if you'll excuse me, I must attend to a few other details before we leave. I will return shortly. He offers me a curt nod before heading out the door. Everyone but me, Kenji, and Adam leaves the room. I turn to see how the guys are doing. Kenji is wearing a suit, some kind of bodysuit. He's black from head to toe, his jet black hair and eyes a perfect match for the outfit molded to every contour of his body. The suit seems to have a synthetic feel to it, almost like plastic. It gleams in the fluorescent lighting of the room and looks like it'd be too stiff to move around in. But then I see him stretching his arms and rolling back and forth on the balls of his feet, and the suit suddenly looks fluid, like it moves with him. He's wearing boots but no gloves and a harness just like me, but his is different. It has simple holsters that sling over his arms like the straps of a backpack. And Adam is wearing a long-sleeved t-shirt, dark blue and dangerously tight across his chest. I can't help but linger over the details of his outfit, can't help but remember what it was like to be held against him in his arms. His black cargo pants are tucked into the same pair of black boots he was wearing when I first met him in the asylum, shin high and sleek, created from smooth leather that fits him so perfectly. It's a surprise they weren't made for his body, but there are no weapons on his person, and I'm curious enough to ask, Adam? He lifts his head to look up and freezes, blinks, eyebrows up, lips parted. His eyes travel down every inch of my body, pausing to study the harness framing my chest, the gun slung close to my waist. He says nothing. He runs a hand through his hair, presses the heel of his palm to his forehead, and says something about being right back. He leaves the room. I feel sick. Kenji clears his throat, loud, shakes his head, says, Wow, I mean, really, you are trying to kill the guy? What? Kenji is looking at me like I'm an idiot. You can't just go around all, oh, Adam, look at me, look at how sexy I am in my new outfit, and bat your eyelashes. Bat my eyelashes? I balk at him. What are you talking about? I'm not batting my eyelashes at him, and this is the same outfit I've worn every day. Kenji grunts, shrugs, and says, Yeah, well, it looks different. You're crazy. I am just saying, he says, hands up in mock surrender, that if I were him, and you were my girl, and you were walking around looking like that, and I couldn't touch you. He looks away, shrugs again. I am just saying I do not envy the poor bastard. I don't know what to do, I whisper. I'm not trying to hurt him. Oh, hell. Forget I said anything, he says, waving his hands around. Seriously, it is none of my business. He shoots me a look. And do not consider this an invitation for you to start telling me all of your secret feelings, though. I narrow my eyes at him. I'm not going to tell you anything about my feelings. Good, because I don't want to know. Have you ever had a girlfriend, Kenji? What? He looks mortally offended. Do I look like the kind of guy who's never had a girlfriend? Have you even met me? I roll my eyes. Forget I asked. I can't even believe you just said that. You're the one who's always going on about not wanting to talk about your feelings, I snap. No, he says. I said I don't want to talk about your feelings. He points at me. I have zero problem talking about my own. So do you want to talk about your feelings? Hell no. But no. Fine. I look away, but at the straps tugging at my pull at the straps tugging at my back. So what's up with your suit? I ask him. What do you mean, what's up with it? He frowns. He runs his hands down his outfit. The suit is badass. I bite back a smile. I just meant, why are you wearing a suit? Why do you get one and Adam doesn't? Adam doesn't need one. Few people do. It all depends on what kind of gift we have. For me, this suit makes my life a hell of a lot easier. I don't always use it, but when I need to get serious about a mission, it really helps. Like when I need to blend into a background, he explains. It's less complicated if I'm shifting one solid color, hence the black. And if I have too many layers and too many extra pieces floating around my body, I have to focus that much more on making sure I blend all the details. If I'm one solid piece and one solid color, I'm a much better chameleon. Besides, he adds, stretching out the muscles in his arms, I look sexy as hell in this outfit. He's so conceited. It takes all of the self-control I have not to burst into laughter. So, but what about Adam? I ask him. Adam doesn't need a suit or guns? That doesn't seem right. I do have guns, Adam says as he walks back into the room. His eyes are focused on the fists he's clenching and unclenching in front of him. You just can't see them. I can't stop looking at him, can't stop staring. Invincible guns, huh? Kenji smirks. That's cute. I don't think I ever went through that phase. Adam glares at Kenji. I have 9 different weapons concealed on my body right now. Would you like to choose the one I used to shoot you in the face, or should I? It was a joke, Kent. Damn, I was joking. All right, everyone. We all spin around at the sound of Castle's voice. He examines the 3 of us. Are you ready? I say, yes. Adam nods. Kenji says, let's do this shit. Castle says, follow me. Chapter 31. It's 10:32 a.m. We have exactly 1 hour and 28 minutes before we're supposed to meet the Supreme Commander. This is the plan. Castle and every able body from Omega Point are already in position. They left half an hour ago. They are hiding in the abandoned buildings skirting the circumference of the meeting point indicated in the note. They will be ready to engage in an offensive strike just as soon as Castle gives the signal, and Castle will only give that signal if he senses we're in danger. Adam and Kenji and I are going to travel by foot. Kenji and Adam are familiar with unregulated turf because, as soldiers, they were required to know which sections of land were strictly off limits. No one is allowed to trespass on the grounds of our past world. The strange alleyways, side streets, old restaurants, and office buildings are forbidden territory. Kenji says our meeting point is in one of the few suburban areas still standing. He says he knows it well. Apparently, as a soldier, he was sent on several errands in this area. Each time required to drop off unmarked packages in an abandoned mailbox. The packages were never explained, and he wasn't stupid enough to ask. He says it's odd that any of these old houses are even functional, especially considering how strict the reestablishment is about making sure the civilians never tried to go back. In fact, most of the residential neighborhoods were torn down immediately after the initial takeover, so it's very, very rare to find sections left untouched. But there it is, written on the note in too tight capital letters, 1542 Sycamore. We're meeting the Supreme Commander inside of what used to be someone's home. So what do you think we should do? Just ring the doorbell? Kenji is leading us toward the exit of Omega Point. I'm staring straight ahead in the dim light of this tunnel, trying not to focus on the woodpeckers in my stomach. What do you think? Kenji asks again. What would that be too much? Maybe we should just knock. I try to laugh, but the effort is half-hearted at best. Adam doesn't say a word. All right, Kenji says, all seriousness now. Once we get out there, you know the drill. We link hands. I project to blend the 3 of us, one of you on either side of me. Got it? I'm nodding, trying not to look at Adam as I do. This is going to be one of the first tests for him and his ability. He'll have to be able to turn off his energy just as long as he's linked to Kenji. If he can't manage it, Kenji's projection won't work on Adam, and Adam will be exposed in danger. Kent, Kenji says, you understand the risk, right, if you can't pull this off? Adam nods. His face is unflinching. He says he's been training every day, working with Castle to get himself under control. He says he's going to be fine. He looks at me as he says it. My emotions jump out of a plane. I hardly even notice we're nearing the surface when Kenji motions for us to follow him up a ladder. I climb and try to think at the same time, going over and over the plan we spent the early hours of the morning strategizing. Getting there is the easy part. Getting inside is where things get tricky. We're supposed to pretend we're doing a swap. Our hostages are supposed to be with the Supreme Commander, and I'm supposed to oversee their release. It's supposed to be an exchange, me for them. But the truth is that we have no idea what will actually happen. We don't know, for example, who will answer the door. We don't know if anyone will answer the door. We don't even know if we're actually meeting inside the house or if we're simply meeting outside of it. We also don't know how they'll react to seeing Adam and Kenji in the makeshift armory we have strapped to our bodies. We don't know if they'll start shooting right away. Excuse me. This is the part that scares me. I'm not worried for myself as much as I am for Adam and Kenji. They are the twist in this plan. They are the element of surprise. They're either the unexpected pieces that give us the only advantage we can afford right now, or they're the unexpected pieces that end up dead the minute they're spotted. And I'm starting to think this was a very bad idea. I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong, if maybe I can't handle this. But it's too late to turn back now. Chapter 32. Wait here. Kenji tells us to lie low as he pops his head out of the exit. He's already disappeared from sight, his figure blending into the background. He's going to let us know if we're clear to surface. I'm too nervous to speak, too nervous to think. I can do this, we can do this, we have no choice but to do this, is all I keep saying to myself. Let's go. I hear Kenji's voice from above our heads. Adam and I follow him up the last stretch of the ladder. We're taking one of the alternate exit routes out of Omega Point, one that only 7 people know about according to Castle. We're taking as many precautions as necessary. Adam and I manage to haul our bodies above ground, and I immediately feel the cold in Kenji's hands slip around my waist. Cold, cold, cold. It cuts through the air like little knives, slicing across our skin. I look down at my feet and see nothing but a barely perceptible shimmer where my boots are supposed to be. I wiggle my fingers in front of my face. Nothing. I look around. No Adam and no Kenji except for Kenji's invisible hand now resting at the small of my back. It worked. Adam made it work. I'm so relieved I want to sing. Can you guys hear me? I whisper, happy no one can see me smiling. Yep. Yep, I'm right here, Adam says. Nice work, Kent. Kenji says to him, I know this can't be easy for you. It's fine, Adam says. I'm fine, let's go. Done. We're like a human chain. Kenji is between me and Adam, and we're linked, holding hands as Kenji guides us through this deserted area. I have no idea where we are, and I'm starting to realize that I seldom do. This world is still so foreign to me, still so new. Spending so much time in isolation while the planet crumbled to pieces didn't do me any favors. The farther we go, the closer we get to the main road, and the closer we get to the compounds that are settled not a mile from here. I can see the boxy shape of their steel structures from where we're standing. Kenji jerks to a halt, says nothing. Why aren't we moving? I ask. Kenji shushes me. Can you hear that? What? Adam pulls in a breath. Shit, someone's coming. A tank, Kenji clarifies. More than one, Adam adds. So why are we still standing here? Wait, Juliet, hold on a second. And then I see it, a parade of tanks coming down the main road. I count 6 of them altogether. Kenji unleashes a series of expletives under his breath. What is it? I ask. What's the problem? There was only one reason Warner ever ordered us to take more than 2 tanks out at a time, on the same route. Adam says to me, What? They're preparing to fight. I gasp. He knows. Kenji says, Damn it, of course he knows. Castle was right. He knows we're bringing backup. Shit. What time is it, Kenji? We have about 45 minutes. Then let's move, I tell him. We don't have time to worry about what's going to happen afterward. Castle is prepared. He's anticipating something like this. We'll be okay, but if we don't get to that house on time, Winston and Brendan and everyone else might die today. We might die today, he points out. Yeah, I tell him. That too. We're moving through the streets quickly now, swiftly, darting through the clearing towards some semblance of civilization, and that's when I see it. The remnants of an achingly familiar universe. Little square houses with little square yards that are now nothing more than wild weeds decaying in the wind. The dead grass crunches under our feet, icy and uninviting. We count down the houses. 1542 Sycamore. It must be this one. It's impossible to miss. It's the only house on this entire street that looks fully functional. The paint is fresh, clean, and beautiful shade of robin's egg blue. A small set of stairs leads up to the front porch, where I notice 2 white wicker rocking chairs and a huge planter full of bright blue flowers I've never seen before. I see a welcome mat made of rubber, wind chimes hanging from a wooden beam, clay pots, and a small shovel tucked into a corner. It's everything we can never have anymore. Someone lives here. It's impossible that this exists. I'm pulling Kenji and Adam toward the home, overcome with emotion, almost forgetting that we're no longer allowed to live in this old, beautiful world. Someone is yanking me backward. This isn't it, Kenji says to me. This is the wrong street. Shit, this is the wrong street. We're supposed to be 2 streets down. But this house, Kenji, someone lives here. No one lives here, he says. Someone probably set this up to throw us off. In fact, I bet that house is lined with C4. It's probably a trap designed to catch people wandering unregulated turf. Now come on, he yanks at my hand again. We have to hurry. We have 7 minutes. And even though we're running forward, I keep looking back, waiting to see some sign of life, waiting to see someone step outside to check the mail, waiting to see a bird fly by. And maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm insane, but I could have sworn I just saw a curtain flutter in an upstairs window. Chapter 33. 90 seconds. The real 1542 Sycamore is just as dilapidated as I'd originally imagined it would be. It's a crumbling mess, its roof groaning under the weight of too many years' negligence. Adam and Kenji and I are standing just around the corner, out of sight, even though we're technically still invisible. There is not a single person anywhere, and the entire house looks abandoned. I'm beginning to wonder if this was all just an elaborate joke. 75 seconds. You guys stay hidden, I tell Kenji and Adam, struck by sudden inspiration. I want him to think I'm alone. If anything goes wrong, you guys can jump in, okay? There's too much of a risk that your presence will throw things off too quickly. They're both quiet a moment. Damn, that's a good idea, Kenji says. I should have thought of that. I can't help but grin, just a little. I'm going to let go now. Hey, good luck, Kenji says, his voice unexpectedly soft. We'll be right behind you. Juliet. I hesitate at the sound of Adam's voice. He almost says something but seems to change his mind. He clears his throat, whispers, Promise you'll be careful. I promise, I say into the wind, fighting back emotion. Not now. I can't deal with this right now. I have to focus, so I take a deep breath, step forward, let go. 10 seconds and I'm trying to breathe. 9 and I'm trying to be brave. 8, but the truth is I'm scared out of my mind. 7 and I have no idea what's waiting for me behind that door. 6 and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a heart attack. 5, but I can't turn back now. 4, because there it is. 3, the door is right in front of me. 2, all I have to do is knock. 1, but the door flies open first. Oh good, he says to me. You're right on time. Chapter 34. It's refreshing, really, he says, to see that you still value things like punctuality. It's always so frustrating when people waste my time. My head is full of missing buttons and shards of glass and broken pencil tips. I'm nodding too slowly, blinking like an idiot, unable to find the words in my mouth, either because they're lost or because they never existed or simply because I have no idea what to say. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I thought he'd be old and slumped and slightly blind. Maybe he'd be wearing a patch on one eye and have to walk with a cane. Maybe he'd have rotting teeth and ragged skin and coarse, balding hair, and maybe he'd be a centaur, a unicorn, an old witch with a pointy hat, anything but this, because this isn't possible. This is so hard for me to understand, and whatever I was expecting was wrong, so utterly, incredibly, horribly wrong. I'm staring at a man who is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, and he is a man. He has to be at least 45 years old, tall and strong, and silhouetted in a suit that fits him so perfectly it's almost unfair. His hair is thick, smooth like hazelnut spread. His jawline is sharp, the lines of his face perfectly symmetrical. His cheekbones hardened by life and age, but it's his eyes that make all the difference. His eyes are the most spectacular things I've ever seen. They're almost aquamarine. Please, he says, flashing me an incredible smile. Come in. And it hits me then, right in that moment, because everything suddenly makes sense. His look, his stature, his smooth, classy demeanor, the ease with which I nearly forgot he was a villain. This man. This is Warner's father. I step into what looks like a small living room. There are old, lumpy couches settled around in a tiny coffee table. The wallpaper is yellowed and peeling from age. The house is heavy with a strange, moldy smell that indicates the cracked glass windows haven't been opened in years, and the carpet is forest green under my feet. The walls embellished with fake wood panels that don't make sense to me at all. This house is, in a word, ugly. It seems ridiculous for a man so striking to be found inside of a house so horribly inferior. Oh, wait, he says. Just one thing. What? He's pinned me against the wall by the throat, his hands carefully sheathed in a pair of leather gloves, already prepared to touch my skin, to take off my oxygen, choke me to death, and I'm so sure I'm dying. I'm so sure that this is what it feels like to die, to be utterly immobilized, limp from the neck down. I try to claw at him, kicking at his body with the last of my energy until I'm giving up, forfeiting to my own stupidity, my last thoughts condemning me for being such an idiot, for thinking I could actually come in here and accomplish anything, until I realize he's undone my holsters, stolen my guns, put them in his pockets. He lets me go. I drop to the floor. He tells me to have a seat. I shake my head, coughing against the torture in my lungs, wheezing into the dirty, musty air, heaving in strange, horrible gasps. My whole body is spasms against the pain. I've been inside for less than 2 minutes, and he's already overpowered me. I have to figure out how to do something, how to get through this alive. Now's not the time to hold back. I press my eyes shut for a moment, try to clear my airways, try to find my head. When I finally look up, I see he's already seated himself on one of the chairs, staring at me as though thoroughly entertained. I can hardly speak. Where are the hostages? They're fine. This man, whose name I do not know, waves an indifferent hand in the air. They'll be just fine. Are you sure you won't sit down? What? I try to clear my throat and regret it immediately, forcing myself to blink black, the traitorous tears burning my eyes. What do you want from me? He leans forward in his seat, clasps his hands. You know, I'm not entirely sure anymore. What? Well, you've certainly figured out of that all of this, he nods at me around the room, it is just a distraction, right? He smiles that same incredible smile. Surely you realize that my ultimate goal was to lure your people out into my territory. My men are waiting for just one word from me, and they will seek out and destroy all of your little friends waiting so patiently within this half-mile radius. Terror waves hello to me. He laughs a little. If you think I don't know exactly what's going on in my own land, young lady, you are quite mistaken. He shakes his head. I've let these freaks live too freely among us, and it was my mistake. They're causing me too much trouble, and now it's time to take them out. I am one of those freaks, I tell him, trying to control the tremble in my voice. Why did you bring me here if all you want is to kill us? Why me? You didn't have to single me out. You're right. He nods, stands up, shoves his hands into his pockets. I came here with a purpose, to clean up the mess my son made, and to finally put an end to the naive efforts of a group of idiotic aberrations, to erase the lot of you from this sorry world. But then, just as I began drafting my plans, my son came to me and begged me not to kill you. Just you. He stops, looks up. He actually begged me not to kill you. It was just as pathetic as it was surprising. Of course, then I knew I had to meet you, he says, smiling, staring at me like he might be enchanted. I must meet the girl who's managed to bewitch my boy, I said to myself. This girl who's managed to make him lose sight of his pride, his dignity, long enough to beg me for a favor. A pause. Do you know, he says to me, when my son has ever asked me for a favor? He cocks his head, waits for me to answer. I shake my head. Never. He takes a breath. Never. Not once in 19 years has he ever asked me for anything. Hard to believe, isn't it? His smile is wider, brilliant. I take full credit, of course. I raised him well, taught him to be entirely self-reliant, self-possessed, unencumbered by the needs and wants that break most other men. So to hear these disgraceful, pleading words come out of his mouth, he shakes his head. Well, naturally I was intrigued. I had to see you for myself. I needed to understand what he'd seen. What was so special about you that it could have caused such a colossal lapse in judgment? Though, to be perfectly honest, he says, I really didn't think you'd show up. He takes one hand out of his pocket, gestures with it as he speaks. I mean, I certainly hoped you would, but I thought if you did, you'd at least come with support, some form of backup. But here you are, wearing this spandex monstrosity, and you're alone. He studies me. Very stupid, he says. But brave. I like that. I can admire bravery. Anyhow, I brought you here to teach my son a lesson. I had every intention of killing you, he says, assuming a slow, steady walk around the room. And I preferred to do it where he would be sure to see it. War is messy, he adds, waving his hand. It's easy to lose track of who's been killed and how they died and who killed whom, etc., etc. I wanted this particular death to be as clean and simple as the message it would convey. It's not good for him to form these kinds of attachments, after all. It's my duty as his father to put an end to that kind of nonsense. I feel sick. So tremendously sick to my stomach. This man is far worse than I ever could have imagined. My voice is one hard breath, one low, loud whisper when I speak. So why don't you just kill me? He hesitates, says, I don't know. I had no idea you were going to be quite so lovely. I'm afraid my son never mentioned how beautiful you are, and it's always so difficult to kill a beautiful thing. Besides, you surprised me. You arrived on time, alone. You were actually willing to sacrifice yourself to save the worthless creatures stupid enough to get themselves caught. He takes a sharp breath. Maybe we could keep you. If you don't prove useful, you might prove entertaining at the very least. He tilts his head, thoughtful. Though if we did keep you, I suppose you'd have to come back to the capital with me, because I can't trust my son to do anything right anymore. I've given him far too many chances. Thanks for the offer, I tell him, but I'd really rather jump off a cliff. His laughter is like 100 little bells, happy and wholesome and contagious. Oh my! He smiles, bright and warm and devastatingly sincere. He shakes his head, calls over his shoulder toward what looks like it might be another room, maybe the kitchen, I can't be sure, and says, Son, would you come in here, please? And all I can think is that sometimes you're dying, sometimes you're about to explode, sometimes you're 6 feet under and you're searching for a window. When someone pours light fluid in your hair and lights a match on your face, I feel my bones ignite. Warner is here. Chapter 35. He appears in a doorway directly across from me where I am now standing, and he looks exactly as I remember. Golden hair and perfect skin and eyes too bright for their faded shade of emerald. His is an exquisitely handsome face, one I now realize he's inherited from his father. It's the kind of face no one believes in anymore. Lines and angles and easy symmetry that's almost offensive in its perfection. No one should ever want a face like that. It's a face destined for trouble, for danger, for an outlet to overcompensate for the excess it stole from an unsuspecting innocent. It's overdone. It's too much. Black and green and gold seem to be his colors. His pitch-black suit is tailored to his frame, lean but muscular, offset by the crisp white of his shirt underneath and complemented by the simple black tie knotted at his throat. He stands straight, tall, unflinching. To anyone else he would look imposing, even with his right arm still in a sling. He's the kind of boy who was only ever taught to be a man, who was told to erase the concept of childhood from his life's expectations. His lips do not dare to smile. His forehead does not crease in distress. He has been taught to disguise his emotions, to hide his thoughts from the world, and to trust no one and nothing, to take what he wants by whatever means necessary. I could see all of this so clearly. But he looks different to me. His gaze is too heavy, his eyes too deep. His expression is too full of something I don't want to recognize. He's looking at me like I succeeded, like I shot him in the heart and shattered him, like I left him to die after he told me he loved me, and I refused to think it was even possible. And I see the difference in him now. I see what's changed. He's making no effort to hide his emotions from me. My lungs are liars, pretending they can't expand just to have a laugh at my expense, and my fingers are fluttering, struggling to escape the prison of my bones as if they've waited 17 years to fly away. Escape is what my fingers say to me. Breathe is what I keep saying to myself. Warner as a child, Warner as a son, Warner as a boy who has only a limited grasp of his own life, Warner with a father who would teach him a lesson by killing the one thing he'd ever be willing to beg for. Warner as a human being terrifies me more than anything else. The Supreme Commander is impatient. Sit down, he says to his son, motioning to the couch he was just sitting on. Warner doesn't say a word to me. His eyes are glued to my face, my body, to the harness strapped to my chest. His gaze lingers on my on my neck, on the marks his father likely left behind, and I see the motion in his throat. I see the difficulty he has swallowing down the sight in front of him before he finally rips himself away and walks into the living room. He's so like his father, I'm beginning to realize. The way he walks, the way he looks in a suit, the way he's so meticulous about his hygiene. And yet there is no doubt in my mind that he detests the man he fails so miserably not to emulate. So, I would like to know, the Supreme says, how exactly you managed to get away. He looks at me. I'm suddenly curious, and my son has made it very difficult to extract these details. I blink at him. Tell me, he says. How did you escape? I'm confused. The first or the second time? Twice. You managed to escape twice. He's laughing heartily now. He slaps his knee. Incredible. Both times then. How did you get away both times? I wonder why he's stalling for time. I don't understand why he wants to talk when so many people are waiting for a war, and I can't help but hope that Adam and Kenji and Castle and everyone else haven't frozen to death outside. And while I don't have a plan, I do have a hunch. I have a feeling our hostages might be hidden in the kitchen, so I figure I'll humor him for a little while. I tell him I jumped out the window the first time, shot Warner the second time. The Supreme is no longer smiling. You shot him? I spare a glance at Warner to see his eyes are still fixed firmly on my face. His mouth still in no danger. Ugh, I can't speak. His mouth still in no danger of moving. I have no idea what he's thinking, and I'm suddenly so curious I want to provoke him. Yes, I say, meeting Warner's gaze. I shot him with his own gun. The sudden tension in his jaw, the eyes that drop down to the hands he's gripping too tightly in his lap. He looks as if he's wrenched the bullet out of his body with his own 5 fingers. The Supreme runs a hand through his hair, rubs his chin. I notice he seems unsettled for the first time since I've arrived, and I wonder how it's possible he had no idea how I escaped. I wonder what Warner must have said about the bullet wound in his arm. What's your name? I ask before I can stop myself, catching the words just a moment too late. I shouldn't be asking stupid questions, but I hate that I keep referring to him as the Supreme, as if he's some kind of untouchable entity. Warner's father looks at me. My name? I nod. You may call me Supreme Commander Anderson, he says, so confused. Why does that matter? Anderson? But I thought your last name was Warner. I thought he had a first name I could use to distinguish between him and the Warner I've grown to know too well. Anderson takes a hard breath and spares a disgusted glance at his son. Definitely not, he says to me. My son thought it would be a good idea to take his mother's last name, because that's exactly the kind of stupid thing he'd do. The mistake, he says, almost announcing it now, that he always makes time and time again, allowing his emotions to get in the way of his duty. It's pathetic, he says, spitting in Warner's direction. Which is why, as much as I'd like to let you live, my dear, I'm afraid you're too much of a distraction in his life. I cannot allow him to protect a person who has attempted to kill him. He shakes his head. I can't believe I even have to have this conversation. What an embarrassment he's proven to be. Anderson reaches into his pocket, pulls out a gun, aims it at my forehead, changes his mind. I'm sick of always cleaning up after you. He barks at Warner, grabbing his arm, pulling him up from the couch. He pushes his son directly across from me, presses the gun into his good hand. Shoot her, he says. Shoot her right now.